Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. I am Shay. This is Bookish Chaos. I also apparently can't talk. So today we're going to talk about If He Had Been With Me. I'm just going to set that down because I don't have any notes for this because I literally read this book yesterday. Listened to it and tandem read it, listening to it and looked at it with my eyeballs. It is a YA book. Okay. It is If He Had Been With Me by Laura Nolan. It has the cutest cover on the face of the planet. Unfortunately, looking at the cover, I knew that it was going to be heartbreaking, so bear in mind, I did give this book 4 stars. It is a YA novel. These are children who are in high school. So if it seems like the writing is immature, it's meant to be the POV, the rambling thoughts of a high school student. When the book starts, it starts with them in middle school. It is not intended to be read like you are listening to an adult talk about their experiences. So bear in mind with that. It is, in my opinion, very well written to be something that could have been from the mind of a middle school to high school student to freshly out of high school teenage girl. I understand this main character, whose name is Autumn. I understand Autumn to an almost unnatural degree because I also had a person who was my best friend, not quite as close as them, but who was my best friend, who I was in love with, who I, for many years of my life, dated other people while being in love with someone who was also dating other people. So I understand that from the experience of a child, but also into my adulthood, having that experience. So the book starts very ominously. The book starting is a good way to grab someone's attention. However, I do feel like the way that the book starts does give away most of the ending. The actual very last chapter ending of the book, I did not expect. I wasn't real thrilled with it, but it has made me think that maybe my star rating should be a little bit lower, but that's just a me problem. As far as the book being well written, it was a 4. So you have the very beginning, which pulls you in, and you are learning about a car accident that happens, and how she wasn't there, but she can see it clearly in her mind. She is an author, therefore being explained something like this, if you are someone like me who, when I read or when someone explains something to me, I can see it in my mind. I have that ability to create a movie when I'm reading. So chapter 1 is the pulling you in. Chapter 2 starts with Phineas Smith is Aunt Angelina's son. Aunt Angelina is not my aunt. She is my mother's best friend from girlhood, her best friend still, and next door neighbor, which then establishes how Phineas Smith, this person who is, come to learn is the boy that is the best friend that she's in love with. She does not know it, but as adults with comprehension knowledge, you know it. And so that is why they are so close. You learn that Phineas's mom, it is described as her mother, what's the exact word? Our mothers had been pregnant, that's together, that spring and summer long ago. My mother, respectably so, married to her high school sweetheart for over a year. Continue. Okay. Angelina was pregnant from her lover. He was married and rich and far too old for her. So that essentially establishes who these two women were. You get some of them, the children, Phineas and Autumn, they call them the mothers because they raised their children together basically, because Angelina was a single mom for the most part. We'll get into that. And then her mom whose name I can't think of right now. It literally doesn't matter. Literally does not matter. They are not the main people in this story. But her mom was essentially a single mother because her dad is a businessman who works all the time. All the time. He's almost never home. So the story goes on with the kids, Phineas and Autumn. You learn that they are the absolute best friends, that they are one part of the same soul, essentially. And you learn that, so Phineas's dad, who was rich, he did not believe that this child was his until the DNA test proves it. And then he helps her financially with the child, but that is about the most that he is involved in Phineas's life. To explain what their childhood is like, we'll use this line from the book. Finney was loyal to me. He taunted anyone who dared torment me, snubbed anyone who scorned me, and always picked me first to be on his team. So you learn that Finney is very popular. All the boys like him, and all of the girls want to be with him. You don't know at this point that her and Finney are not, that Finney is in love with her. So then chapter 2 is explaining what they were like as children. Chapter 3 starts with their very first day of high school. You learn that her and Phineas are not friends anymore. You do not know why. You do not know why her and Phineas are not friends. And essentially, to sum it up, really, the whole rest of the book until the very end is the trials and tribulations of going through high school, the trials and tribulations of wanting to be friends with someone that has been your friend literally your entire life, but that you grew apart. That's how she describes it in the book. They grew apart. You learn that at the end of middle school, her and her friend Sasha, who had been friends with the popular kids, she doesn't try out for cheerleading and Sasha doesn't make it into the cheerleading team. Therefore, their friends in catty kid way phase them out of the group. It's kind of like we were pink on Wednesdays. The other girls in the group wore their hair in braids one day, and it's a thing where they always wear their hair in braids on the same day, and they just did not tell Autumn and Sasha about the braid day, and they're like, oh, I guess we're not friends anymore because that's how childhood works. Nobody knows how to communicate. Nobody has any emotional intelligence, so that's the end of their friendship. You find out later that the girls lied to Finney, and he's not aware that is how that happened. He thinks that Sasha and Autumn just decided they weren't going to be friends anymore. So, going into high school, you also sometimes get, at this particular high school, kids from a private school that come to do high school with these other kids. And from this bout of private school kids that come and go to their high school, a group forms. A group that has 4 girls and 3 boys, and 3 of the girls and the 3 boys pair up together. One of them does not, and you learn that Angie, who is the one that does not, has a boyfriend from another school. She's like, I'm not going to date the kids in my school because that's weird kind of kid. So Autumn starts dating Jamie. They date their entire high school career. And you see Autumn struggle with loving Jamie in the way that you do as a child. And sometimes the way you can as an adult, and slowly her realizing that she does have feelings for Phineas, that she has been in love with Finney forever, and then trying to juggle the way that she feels with Jamie and the way she feels for Finney. As someone who doesn't have emotional intelligence, they're very big feelings for a child to have to deal with. And as someone, as an adult, who has been in love with the same person for many years, but still had feelings for other people, it is very hard to juggle as an adult. It is very hard to realize your true feelings. It's hard to comprehend that humans are complex and feelings are not black and white. And trying to navigate that as a child in high school is very hard. As a young adult novel, it can make children feel, children's a strong word. I do not recommend this book for anyone under the age of, I'm gonna say 15, maybe 14. If you have a child who understands, it's not like open page sex, it's like on page touching of the body, but then like not fade to black. It's not super descriptive. It's basic, one solitary basic sex scene and some teenage groping scenes. Like, so 14 should be acceptable. 14 and up should be acceptable in my personal opinion, as someone who does not have children, but who was a 14-year-old having sex. I suppose it's to your discretion as a parent, depending on what you have discussed with your child and what your child knows. And if your child is a child who's having sex, I realize that that is a concept that is hard for a lot of parents to come to terms with, but parents who can be understanding and understand that their children are going to do that and just want them to be safe about it should have already had, by the time that they're 14, the conversation about having safe sex with them. I'm just saying. Comprehensive and science-based sex education is a good thing. Children understanding what sex is and why people choose to have it is a good thing. It's how you prevent childhood pregnancies, which there is one in this book. Her friend Angie gets pregnant in this book, has a child, and then they get married, which isn't, it's fine. I don't think that you should just get married because you have a child, but that's just me. But in this situation, that was what they wanted to do, and their parents just okayed. They were 17 and 18 at this time. Both of them might have been 18 by the time that they actually went and got married. It's hard for me because I graduated high school at 17 years old, and I realized that most of the kids in my class that I graduated with were 18, and a couple of them were 19. I was very young. So, assumedly, both of the teen parents in this book are 18, and they were just like, we're getting married, not, can we get married, to their parents. And the parents were there, and they were like going through their own feelings, but you don't get into that because it's not from their point of view. I really rambled on this. The teen pregnancies freak me out a little bit as a person who is almost 32 in 2 days and does not have children. Another reason why I think that this book is very good for teenagers is because her mother suffers with very severe depression. She has been institutionalized multiple times in Autumn's life. Her dad is just not there. He's a businessman who works all the time. He's not there. And you get to see her navigate being a teenager whose mom gets so depressed that you get institutionalized, and then she has to spend time with her aunt Angelina and Phineas because her mom's not there to take care of her, and then her mom comes back and everything's fine, and then she discovers that she herself has depression, that, as evidenced, she most likely inherited from her mother, some of it, and it's a very good way to realize that it's okay to be depressed and that some people need more help than others. And it's very interesting to see a teenager navigate through that. Long story short, I've gotten very rambly on this review. I have no notes. I literally read it yesterday and I just needed to get it out because I was having lots of thoughts. So you are getting my rambly thoughts in this review of this book. Entirely non-super spoilery part of the review is going to now be done. Anything after this is, if you want to read it, I wouldn't listen to anything else that I have to say. So here we go. So they graduate high school, and towards the end, their senior year of high school, her and Phineas start to get a little closer again. They have a class that it's literally just them. None of his friends and none of her friends are in this class with them. And it kind of helps to rekindle their friendship. And at this point, she has realized, I am in love with Finny. She still at this point has no idea that Finny has been in love with her since they were children. Finny has a girlfriend whose name is Sylvie, and she, Autumn, is dating Jamie, as we discussed earlier in this video. It's from her point of view, so you get to experience how she navigates realizing she's in love with Finny and realizing that it's not the same kind of love that she has for Jamie. her mom suckers her into going to a soccer game that Finney is playing in, and he gets injured during the soccer game. And it's one of those things where, like, you know that you have feelings for someone, but until something happens to them, you don't realize how much you care for them, how devastated you would be if they were no longer in existence, not really in your life. Because for the entire time that they have not been friends, their families still do holidays together. They still do Thanksgiving and Christmas and 4th of July and all of those things together. So they're still in each other's lives. They're just not close like they used to be. And the thought that he could be severely injured like that made her realize the depth of her feelings for him. And she's like, she goes through the whole, do I break up with Jamie? I still care about him, but I don't care about him the way that I care about Finney. What do I do? And then they come to an agreement her sophomore year, or their junior year, right before their senior year starts. Jamie, for most of their high school career, has been pressuring her to have sex with him, in not like a really bad way, but still, like, I would consider it pressuring. And she's like, after we graduate, I will be ready. So they graduate, and he calls her and says, hey, can I come over? And she's like, yeah. And he gets there and he's acting really weird, and she knows exactly what he's going to tell her. And the thing that he's about to tell her is that him and her best friend, her best girlfriend, Sasha, have feelings for each other and that they slept together. She finds out that they slept together before her and Jamie were, I mean, obviously before they were broken up, but like at this point they had graduated and they slept together before prom, and proms are usually in like April. So at this point it's like the end of May, beginning of June, and he's like, oh, by the way, me and Sasha, we're together. Which then leads her into a very deep depression. Her mom has depression issues. You get to see her battle with that. And her come to the realization that the depression that her mom has, the level of depression that her mom has, she might have too. And it's, as a teenager, very, I'm not sick like my mother. Because her mom has been institutionalized multiple times. She's like, I don't get that sick. I'm just sad during winter. Winter just makes me sad. And that doctor I don't like because he just tries to up my dose. And it's how a teenager navigates through depression, and watching her mom suffer with it. And it's very, very good. Jamie cites being unable to take care of her as one of the reasons why he has wanted to end things with Autumn. It's not an acceptable reason to then sleep with her best friend, but that's just my opinion. And at this point, her parents have gotten divorced. Her mom and her Aunt Angelina are just spending all of their time together. And so after this happens, after he breaks up with her and tells her that he cheated on her with her best friend, she falls into the kind of depression that her mom gets institutionalized for. She stays in her bed for days. That kind of depression where you feel numb and you just can't go on. You can't do anything but lay in bed. Her mom pops up, so she's like being very depressed. Days on days on days, stuck in bed. And her mom comes in and says, time to get dressed. And she's like, no, I'm staying in this bed. And her mom was like, Finney's coming over. He'll be here in 2 minutes. You're going to throw some clothes on and you're going to be ready to go. She's like, what are you talking about? So she hurries up, does like a quick take care of herself, shower kind of thing, gets dressed, sits on her bed, and then Finney knocks on her door and walks in. And she's like, well, what are you doing here? And he's like, we're going to breakfast. That's what I'm doing here. And she's like, well, why are we going to breakfast? And he said, because the moms are concerned. The mothers want you to be institutionalized right now. So you're going to go to breakfast with me and convince the mothers that you're fine. Because if you don't, that's what's going to happen to you. So she's like, fine, I will go to breakfast with you. So they go to breakfast, and then it becomes an everyday thing. They spend a little bit more time together. Eventually, they are spending all day and all night, and the mothers just let them do it because they have, at this point, graduated high school. And they are just hanging out and drinking and partying and spending time together. Their summer away. All the while, Phineas is still technically dating Sylvie, but Sylvie is in a foreign country, many foreign countries. So they go through, and it's fun and it's adventurous and everything, and they have a moment where they finally discuss what happened between them. And you find out that what happened is, at 13 years old, Phineas kissed her on New Year's, under the guise of it being New Year's, but because he wanted to, because he was in love with her. And she thought that he did it for, I don't know what reason, not because he had feelings for her. And then it became awkward, and she just stopped talking to him. And that's what happened to make them not be friends. And then they talk about that, and they talk about everything, and they end up confessing their feelings for each other, and they end up having sex, which, I mean, is a little bit the same thing that Jamie did to Autumn that he's doing to Sylvie, because Sylvie has no idea that he does not have feelings for her anymore. But shit happens. She's in a foreign country, okay? There's not much they can do about it. He doesn't want to just be like, Sylvie, we're done. He wants to, like, in person be like, I care about you, but not like I care about Autumn. But anyway, it's all messy and mush-meshy. And so the day comes that Sylvie is back from Europe, and he's like, I'm going to go and tell her that we're done. And you realize, if you have deductive reasoning by this point, and she gives a little bit of foreshadowing, there is just something in her at this moment that begs him not to go. And you find out that this is the night of the accident that is in chapter 1. He and Sylvie are fighting because he's breaking up with Sylvie. Why they were in the car, we do not know. Why he didn't just, like, I think he didn't want to do it at her parents' house, so they went somewhere and then they were fighting on the way back. That's just what I'm assuming, because that's not strictly stated in the book, but as, like, you know, she comes back from Europe, she's still living with her parents, you don't want to, like, break up with her parents' house, but that's what I'm assuming happens. And when the car accident happens, it's raining, the roads are slick, he takes a curve too fast, he is wearing a seatbelt and Sylvie is not. Sylvie's thrown from the car, and he comes to, and he is safely in the car. He is strapped into his seatbelt like he's supposed to be. Everything is fine until he gets out of the car, which is not something you're supposed to do in a car accident. He gets out of the car and he goes over to Sylvie, who is dead on the road because she was thrown from the car. And the storm had knocked a power line down, and he does not know it because things like this happen and you do not know things like this. And he leans down to, like, talk to Sylvie, and he puts his hand in some water that is electrified, and he dies. And I figured that he was going to die because the name of the book is If He Had Been With Me. Because if he had been with Autumn, he would not be dead. And then, so that happens. Finney had told Autumn that he was going to sneak into her room and hold her for the rest of the night. And her mom comes in and tells her that Finney is dead. And you get the montage of the mom's griefs. Angelina is at their house every single day. She's essentially living with them because her only child is now dead, and she's working through the grief of that. Autumn is trying to work through the grief of finally realizing that you have feelings for someone, finally confessing those feelings, and you find out you both have them. And then she has her first sexual experience with this person that she loves very dearly, and then immediately after, he dies in a car accident. How awful is that? But I knew that was coming. I knew that that was how that was going to play out. She then leaves a note and trigger warning. I probably should have done that sooner. Trigger warning. Sneaks into her Aunt Angelina's house. Aunt Angelina's house, goes into Phineas's room because she wants to be in the place that she was with him last, surrounded by all of his things. And she slits her wrists. And then there's a whole montage. Hold on, I will find it. Okay, so that happens. And then the next chapter, in books, people always wake up in the hospital and can't remember how they got there. And then it all slowly comes back to them. I opened my eyes and thought, oh shit. I sit cross-legged in the middle of the bed wearing a scratchy blue nightgown. The hospital blanket is depressingly small and thin, more like a beach towel. I have an IV in one hand, and my wrists are so neatly wrapped and taped that it makes me wonder about the person who bandaged them. I study my bandages as the nurse takes my blood pressure and asks me if I know what day it is. And then, in true me fashion, when you're someone who's depressed, when you're someone who is in this state, often this happens. She asks more questions, I mumble answers. I shouldn't ask about the person who did the bandages because that would be weird, and I need to get out of here as soon as possible. Finney would forgive me. No, Finney will forgive me when I get to explain to him afterward. I touch the cotton wrapping with one finger. Now here's the part that I was unhappy about. And when was your last menstrual cycle, dear? For the first time in weeks, everything within me goes still and silent. On what day did you last have your period, Autumn? I look up at her face for the first time. She's younger than I thought. I can't remember, I say. She frowns. And then the last chapter of the book starts with, Finney wouldn't approve of me trying again if I'm pregnant. Which was the only part of this whole book that I didn't like. I didn't like that she ended up pregnant. She is like, if I can't have him, at least I'll have a part of him. She's like, if I can't have him, at least I get to have a piece of him. Which, like, that part, oh shit, I'm wearing makeup. That part I understand. The idea of not having the person you love, but a child from them being a part of them. I understand that. I understand that sometimes children are the only reason that their parents are still living. That I know of multiple people who were suicidal, who, when they found out they were pregnant, were like, I can't do this for this child. I understand that. I just didn't like it in the book. I mean, there was foreshadowing. He was like, I don't have a condom. And she was like, I don't care. And then begged him to have sex. And like, overall, it was good. I honestly would have been fine with her succeeding in killing herself and being with Finney. I mean, that's not good for children to read, probably. But like, if they have the emotional intelligence and the like intellectual ability to be able to realize that that's fiction, and in real life, you don't need to hurt yourself when someone is gone. That hurting yourself just because someone is gone is not the right answer. But it is also, I don't know where I was going with that thought. That thought's gone. I think that overall, it is a very well-written book that could help some teenagers work through emotions that they're feeling. And it does have good themes like learning that depression is not a bad thing and that there are various different levels of depression. Shows that children and teenagers don't have the emotional intelligence to navigate through complicated relationships, but you watch a child try to navigate through complicated relationships with parents and friends and boyfriends and the whole situation. It is overall, in my opinion, which is why I gave it 4 stars, a very well-rounded novel that I think could be good for teenagers, like I said, 14 and up, and even adults. There are adults that I know that do not have the emotional intelligence that this child in this book did. Overall, very well written, very great book. As I said, parts that I didn't like, but nobody's going to write a book that's going to be perfect for every single person. Like, all the way through, there's going to be aspects of the book that you don't like. That's entirely fine. I do 100% recommend this book. I devoured it like a starving person, like a person who has been in the Mojave Desert with no water for weeks. Devoured it. It was wonderful. Let me know if you have read this book. Leave a comment. If you are interested in it, leave a comment. If you'd like to chat about it more, go ahead and comment. Otherwise, like and subscribe. I have 2 more books that I know for sure that I'm going to try to get read through this weekend. Fingers crossed. Probably not going to happen. That I want to do books on, and both, I believe, are YA. One of them, I literally just like stumbled across it, was like, this sounds cool, and bought it. The other one I know for sure is a YA novel. And then we'll go back to spicy things. I had decided the other day that I had it with spicy and dark romance things. I am still needing to finish the Zodiac Academy series. I am still putting it off. So I'm finding other things to do, things that are even remotely not related, like YA novels set in real life about teenagers navigating emotional problems. But it's fine. All right, I will see you guys next time. Bye.